when I thought of this talk, I wanted to start with this, and some of you may have seen this video, where there's a German submarine, and it's below surface, and there's on the ocean a ship, and it's in distress. And the ship is gradually sinking, and the message goes out to all the ships and submarines in the area, and it says, we're sinking, we're sinking. And it goes out and it's louder and louder, and some of the people say, I'm sinking, I'm sinking. And the German submarine message goes back and it says, what are you thinking about? So I want to start with that often we have postgraduate students who are saying we are thinking, we are thinking. And we then say, what are you thinking about? And my background is in educational psychology. And I come from a whole family. Oh, is it possible to switch off that light, please? Thanks. I come from a whole family of educators. My gran was a teacher for 40 years. My mom was a teacher for close to 50 years. I got married to a husband who studied teaching, and his grandfather was a teacher. So for me, it's unimaginable to speak without also writing. So indulge me as I do that. I want to start by trying to layer the evidence of what we know about well-being into a conversation on postgraduate educational psychology. And when I was in practice as an educational psychologist, oftentimes parents would come with their children and say, we're really worried about our child not achieving what they want to in life. They are unhappy and they're not achieving academically. And I use this image to explain to them the connection between cognition. I use this symbol of a book for cognition, for thinking, for thoughts, and an ocean for affect, so emotions. And I would draw a little island with a palm tree and say to parents, children and parents, or then if you think postgraduate students, have in mind a certain outcome, something they want to achieve. And it's pretty smooth sailing if the emotions are stable. Now, it's easy to get to this destination. However, if this ocean becomes disrupted, if it's difficult to sail on this, it's difficult to reach this destination. So what does resilience thinking tell us about this? Resilience only ever comes to the fore if there is an extreme disruption. So something happens that disrupts the ocean, the climate, the conditions, so that we can't reach our destination. Resilience predicts a negative outcome. Disruption predicts a negative outcome. And resilience is this process where something happens in the ecosystem to mobilize what is available, resources, protective factors, so that an unpredicted positive outcome is possible. If we talk about postgraduate students, the predicted negative outcome is that they have burnout, that they have cynicism, they disengage from the work they want to do, and they have low efficacy. They're not able to perform at the level that they want to. What we want from a resilience perspective, an unexpected positive outcome is vigor, so they're excited about what they want to do, they're engaged in their task, and they have high efficacy. So what does evidence tell us about what needs to be done, what needs to be mobilized so that unexpected or unpredicted positive outcomes can be possible? Let's look at the story of evidence. So one of the most phenomenal studies on well-being is the Harvard, now 85-year human development study. And it shows that not money, not status, not ego matters. What matters for well-being, for happiness, is relationships. meaningful relationships. So the Harvard study shows this for human development over time. They follow a panel and they saw this over an 85-year time frame. This is backed by epidemiology, where Wilkinson and Paquette, UK scholars, found that what mattered most for health and well-being across nations was also relationships, then self-esteem, I'll talk about that now, and then functional services. So at an epidemiological level or science, we need to have also connections, community that matters for us, significant relationships that shows us we're not isolated. We need to feel proud about who we are and where we are from. We need to feel self-worth, and that would also then propel the vigor, the engagement, and the high efficacy. And we need a functional space. So if we think of students, we need students who have access to information they require, safe housing. We need students who are able to eat. We need students who are not worried about their families at home, who may be struggling economically. So the functional services at an epidemiological level matters. And in addition, what we also know from an economic perspective, what matters for well-being is, I love this theory, the time preference theory. So, how we decide to spend our time, our most precious commodity, will determine our happiness, the extent to which we're able to choose that and to push it towards things that matter to us. So, if we take that economic principle and then we think in terms of neurochemistry, neurochemistry tells us about various aspects in our bodies that requires us to think about how we intentionally spend time to help us feel good, to have well-being. And what those are is, firstly, in terms of oxytocin. So oxytocin is when we choose to spend time where there's touch and love. So this can be with pets, with friends. People need a hug. People need human connection. Think of when you're traveling abroad and you're there by yourself, and the only person you actually speak to is maybe the person who sells you something across a counter, or if you check into a space. At a certain time, you kind of feel you want something more, and that's your oxytocin saying you need to spend time to connect in a way that also requires touch. The other neurotransmitter that we require is dopamine, and dopamine is the reward neurotransmitter. So this means when you feel that you have completed a task that you set out to do, dopamine comes in. If you celebrate and you're congratulated about a milestone that you reached, dopamine comes to the fore. If you feel that you are living a life of purpose, if you think that you're reaching that island, that destination that you're aiming to do, dopamine and wellness kicks in. The two that remain is endorphin and serotonin. So endorphin is pain, it dulls pain. At the end of the day, after you've had a long day, isn't it wonderful just to go and sit and laugh with somebody, or scroll mindlessly on Instagram, or read a book that you really enjoy, go watch a movie, have a braai, something that says to you, this wasn't just stress today. We're doing something to dull that feeling of anxiety and stress, and doing something of meaning. I just quickly want to get water. So, if we then choose to spend our time in those activities, we also enhance our well-being, we enable well-being in our space. Serotonin is the mood enhancer. So serotonin is things like being in nature, feeling sun on your skin, doing exercise, relaxing. If I think of serotonin, I picture December holidays, where it's the ultimate of serotonin kicking in and everything coming together. Besides the neurochemistry, economic, epidemiology, and human development science, there's also a sociological and anthropological study that some of you may have heard of, called the Blue Zone phenomenon, where across the world they saw there's 9 ways in which people practice their daily life, and that actually enhances all of these things. And they're quite exciting. The first one is family first. So what they found in these regions in the world where people live long, happily, healthily, people tend to put their families first. So if we then, as mentors with students, can also have a picture of them, not only as an individual, but as somebody connected to a family that matters for them, that is also meaningful for the well-being in that connection with them. The next one is, that's also in terms of oxytocin and relationships, is that people who feel that they belong to a smaller tribe do better. So smaller tribe could be all of us here thinking that we're a tribe who cares about quality in postgraduate supervision. It could be a postgraduate group who actually works in a lab together and they share the same focus, the same values, the same practices. It could be a tribe that has to do with a circle of friends that somebody has had for a long time. But a smaller community is meaningful for well-being, not only a large community. And then at the last of the 9, or the third of the 9 that fits in with relationships, is to belong to some kind of purposeful, faith-based space. So this is not a formalized religion. This is to be with people who share the same values and the same belief of existence, existential meaning-making as you do, where that's validated and it matters. In terms of dopamine, what is evident as meaningful for anthropological and sociological wellness is firstly to move naturally. So these people say it's not necessary to have a formal regime of gym activity, but to climb upstairs, to stand up and get up and go for coffee, to walk during a break or during lunchtime. That kind of movement is extremely good to enhance dopamine, but also as endorphin and serotonin. The next one, too, has to do with what people eat. So people who choose to do more of a plant-based diet, and only it's the hara hachibu is the 80% principle. Don't eat until you are stuffed. Stop eating when you've had enough. So think for the postgraduate students, especially those in lab spaces, but also elsewhere, the meaning of, this sounds ridiculous, but we started using it at the center and it works like a charm. We have a bowl of fruit that we have available for anybody to just take an apple or take an orange, and we all contribute to that. So it's not something that's only done by leadership in the center. Everybody brings something to the fruit bowl, and we have that attention on living in a way that's balanced and nutritious. Then in terms of endorphins and serotonin, this one I really like. You don't need to take it literally, but it is, I like to take it literally, wine at 5. So it's been shown that in all these spaces where people have longevity in terms of health and well-being, at a stage they stop, they celebrate the end of the day, and that can be with a glass of wine, it can be tea, it can be whatever you like. It has to do with signifying, having a ritual that says, I'm signing off on this day, and I'm now going into a different role. Very difficult for postgrads because they keep in that mode. They're very tough on themselves. They're a high excelling group and they're exceptional achievers, and they expect themselves to just go on the whole time. Then purpose. I ask my students to tell me what this is, their purpose. Why are they doing this degree? Why are they doing this master's? Why are they doing this doctorate? If I'm mentoring somebody, a younger colleague or early career colleague in the faculty, I ask them, what is your next step and why? How does it fit into this person or purpose? Why are you doing this? How will it make you feel more of who you are? How does it fit into your career path? So, knowing that purpose is good for endorphins and serotonin. It helps with both of those. And then a very important one that probably goes also with the wine at 5 is to downshift. To be aware that when you make time to be, especially in nature, do an early morning walk in your neighborhood, feel the sun on your skin, don't need to be long, but feel the difference it makes if you intentionally, deliberately fit into your daily program something. And to also let postgrads know that. Yes to all the readings, yes to everything you need to, but also downshift. What do we know about this process of mobilizing resources in a country such as South Africa? Well, we did a 10-year study looking at indigenous knowledge on what enables well-being and positive outcomes when it's predicted based on conditions that it would be negative. And what we saw, different to elsewhere in the world, is that South Africans, or actually in sub-Saharan Africa, and I am going to proudly do our flag there, we flock. So different to other places where there's fight, flight, faint, and swarm, if there's a crisis, what we do is come together. So think of what we said on the previous page. Flocking means that social resources, I'll give examples of these now, they are the things that are mobilized in terms of social support so that there can be unpredicted positive outcomes. Now, the beauty of this as an indigenous knowledge system is that social resources do not cost money, and social support does not cost money. It's an extremely sophisticated, low-cost way of supporting many towards collective well-being. So where there's collective distress, to enable collective well-being. This strategy was very evident in COVID globally, and we realized that this is actually more to do with collectivism and an interdependent worldview than it is necessarily of just South Africa. With us, it's just prominent so much because our worldview dominates in terms of Ubuntu, where we tend to think what we have together can be mobilized for everybody. So social resources would include collective resources. Think of a stokvel or a committee. That's something that's created from the bottom up. There's a need, and if we pull the resources here, it's meaningful. Social resources also includes emotional support, to be there for one another. It's cultural support, so if you think of the previous page, it's having a tribe who shares your values, to put family first as a value that is practiced. And of course also economic opportunity. But this is not giving money. This is saying, in Lesotho we had evidence of smart partnerships, where people would say, I will provide my cow to help many others, but your plow will help me in my smallholding. So everybody benefits. There's reciprocity and mutuality in that plan. And it's seldom giving money. It's more creating opportunity for economic advancement. If we know this, that flocking matters, how beautiful is it not? That it resonates. I'm going to use a different colored pen for this. That it resonates with all of this multidisciplinary evidence that at the heart of well-being lies relationships. And what we see from evidence then from South Africa, and that's now included also in a curriculum in Asia and in Latin America, is that here it's not just that being connected and not being isolated. It's then mobilizing the social resources that connects to the people in a relationship for social support, and that enables the well-being. Sue gave me this lovely idea when we were on the emails just talking a bit about what they would like the session to focus on. And she said it would be great if we do something where we can also have smaller group discussions. So what I would really like is if everybody just at the table where you're sitting would address the following question. Spend some time talking about it and then just do quick feedback per group of what you think. And the question is this. I'm going to write it before I talk. So this is the question. How can university leadership mobilize structures for social support that enables positive postgraduate well-being? So the beauty in this is that these structures should be existing structures in your university already. These should not be things that cost money. It's being deliberate and intentional of thinking which of these structures could potentially be structures where there can be social support for students amongst themselves so that they can have well-being. And if they have well-being, there's a strong correlation between well-being of postgrads and graduation. So the emotional well-being leads to positive academic outcomes, which is what we all would like. And hopefully if they see the benefits of social structures, they take that into their careers and their futures, wherever they can work as graduates in society. So let's take about, I think, 5 to 10 minutes. Talk about this in your groups. Think about the structures in your university, which potentially can be lobbied and coordinated in a way that would provide social support opportunities to postgrads, so that all of it is not on the shoulder of the mentor and the supervisor, but rather that the environment, the higher education environment, plays into this well-being pathway for the students.
Okay, so anybody who'd like to volunteer to go first on what your group brainstormed? Here I see a table. If you could just please say who you are and where you're from, and then your response, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Dabo Mutiba. I'm from the University of Limpopo. I'll be representing this table. What we indicated is that the structures that we have, firstly, we have the counseling centers, which the students, when taking advantage of them, they assist them to cope with their studies. sporting activities. Students choose what they like so that they can engage during their free time. We have book clubs, some have coffee discussion sessions, which assist them to cope with their studies, because that's where it's a non-threatening situation where students share their experiences and all what it is in their postgraduate space. Then we also indicated that most universities, they organize writing retreats for students, and especially during weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, accommodating those who are working during the week, so that's where they share their experiences and assist one another. Most universities have research commons, which are attached to library, and those spaces are good for students to engage and also to do their work in a non-threatening situation. I think that's in a nutshell what we discussed, unless if one of my colleagues here can add. Thank you.
Who would like to go follow? Here we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Bernard from Tshwane University of Technology. We agreed as a group that different universities have different approaches when it comes to providing social support for postgraduate students. Number one, we spoke about the issue of admin support, because if there's one thing that our postgraduate students often struggle is admin support. From day one, when it comes to registration, it is actually a tedious process, and sometimes along the process, we end up losing students. So that is one area of support. And then we also spoke about the writing retreat, because I think academia is all about writing. So we should not deny the fact that that is an important aspect that should be taken into consideration. We also spoke about counseling, because every university has a counseling department. And I think with mental health becoming an issue lately, it is something that we should also take into account. Financial aid and bursaries. And last but not least, we also spoke about social events such as workshops, networking events, because in so doing, we are able to provide that social support to students. I thank you.
Thank you so much. And of course, that is one of the kernels that we want here. How do we mobilize the structures we have so that the students don't feel isolated, so that they feel they belong, they're in a tribe, they've made connections, and they have relationships? I'll go here and then there.
So I'm from UJ. We have within the postgraduate school a research capacity development unit, as well as StatCon, which is statistical consultation services. But part of RCD, we've got sessions where we call it sit tight and write. So most of our PhD students and our masters by research directed students are working students. So what we do is we try and create a space in the postgraduate school where we've got writing consultants that are in the space. They basically sit tight and they write. We've got a 3-minute thesis competition, so they are also incentivized where we have a panel of judges. There's different streams, so it's almost like a call. We send it out, students submit their abstracts, and then they'll submit a PowerPoint presentation. There's a selection process, and then these students basically compete, and they're given a certain sum of money based on, whether you position first, second, or third. We've got a conference, it's actually running this year as well, for our postgrad students as well as our postdocs. So here as well, we've got different research areas. We've got chairs that come in that oversee a panel of judges, And I think it's also a very nice networking session for our students where they can link up with other students, whether it's a master's student that's looking at a research focus area that a PhD student is, currently working with. And they get a chance to also do posters. So very much like going to an international conference, we give them that kind of a feel when they come to our postgraduate and PDRF conference. We've got free writing consultants. So whether it's for staff of university or students, it's 2 consultants. You make an appointment with them. They assist you, whether it's with your thesis, that's for, submission, or whether it's for your articles for publication. And I spoke about StatCon, so they do statistical consultation. Any quantitative studies, we've got free services where students can come in and they can assist them with the different tools that they need to use to work through their data. And we also run workshops in terms of well-being. We do writing retreats as well. We've also created communities on Moodle for different cohorts of students to give them that time. So when we spoke about relationships, I think that community was important, building a community for the cohort. And we see a lot of interaction that happens in that way. Also in our library, I think the gentleman spoke about that as well. The library gives them lots of assistance when it comes to EndNote, or how do you look for a certain, article that you need or a book that you need. But what we've also done is created a space. So when you spoke about, you need to gear down a bit. So you walk in, you see the library. Obviously there's all the books, which is very daunting. But then onto your right, you have a very nice coffee space where I think it encourages students to also sit and talk, not just about their studies, but I think about the difficulties and challenges. And I think that actually encourages sort of a budding up system. Or if not, students know that it's not something unique to them, and they offer support to each other as well. Thank you.
No, but you give them a chance.
I'm sharing with you guys.
So I think that the core here is, besides everything that we are doing within university structures to support the students, what are we doing deliberately to make sure they belong, that they're not isolated, that we get them to feel part of a smaller and a larger way, and that they have relationships?
Hi, my name is Liesel. I'm from Northwest University. I'm representing my group. As far as social aspects are important to enable students to survive in the postgraduate environment, we are aware that the social aspects are not quite often are intertwined with other aspects as well, such as health, such as financial distress. So in many universities, we have a wellness center where staff members and students are given counseling for their mental health, also for financial counseling. We also have the clinics or health centers where students, when they have medical conditions, they could be rushed, and if the conditions are more complicated, they are referred to the neighboring public facilities. And also, the students are, as far as financial issues are concerned, the universities are offering bursaries where possible. I know it's not possible to give bursary to all students, but there is some assistance in that regard, and it goes a long way. And the other thing that is very important is we have libraries that offer a lot of support at the beginning, especially during orientation, for students to know how to adequately utilize the facilities, and to also make sure that it helps with providing some academic support, like how to utilize the softwares that are available that can be used as tools to ease their processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Okay. There and then they go. There we go.
Thank you so much. This is a group made up from with colleagues from UCT, CUT, Sefaku Bakato, and Nelson Mandela University. And representing this group, we had great discussion here. One is that the infrastructure need to be inviting and really clean environment. We're talking about, well-maintained infrastructure to be very much welcoming. You don't want a student to be skipping like empty cans and dancing like hanging gutters when they are going to see their supervisor. You need them to be very much focused. And also internet connectivity as part of the infrastructure. It's already challenging to do research, but you don't want, the system not to be functioning very well. Secondly, is also postgraduate students associations to be encouraged so that students can be able to support themselves as well. We spoke about the sporting activities as well in that regard. Then also the structuring of programs. There are programs that are structured in the student work in syndicated groups, so they're already there to support each other from the onset. And such kind of programs might really result in, students that are well connected and they have already an existing support system. It's that we actually questioned what is the social support. And if we understand that, the how part was also very much critical for us. And one more is in terms of orientation sessions as well. At the start of the academic year, they serve really critical role in terms of informing what the students can expect throughout the journey as well. And structured support, for example, using different scholars in the space like emeritus professors, research associates, or visiting scholars to socialize in very unstructured way, so that the students don't feel like really everything is all structured and they need to be like making a presentation, they need to be communicating in a structured way, but providing that space for unstructured kind of conversations with people that have been really in that particular journey. It can help them also to sort of open up to the challenges that they might be encountering. And there's one on supervisors. I think, encouraging more inviting environment or relationship with supervisors. So that is very much both ends. So leadership can actually also mobilize supervisors to be very much inviting in terms of how they deal with postgraduate students. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that if one can institutionalize establishing relationships and how relationships can maintain, that's probably the secret to this conversation. So, because all the other support needs to happen also. This is how do we prevent students from being isolated, lonely, and having anxiety, depression, and mental health problems so that they have well-being.
Thank you. I wanted to make 2 points related to all of this. All of our universities try hard to put these kind of structures in place, these support systems. I do think, and a couple of points have been made about things like sport clubs, associations, residences, places where students are actually there. The problem I have, and I don't have an answer, but I know that the problem exists, is the students who either don't know about those places or spaces, or who just don't feel that they belong or that they can go there. And I think we still haven't answered that question. And the other one a point I wanted to make, and it has come up a few times, is we're not only talking about the well-being of the student, we're also talking about the well-being of the supervisors. Because if supervisors are not in a good place, to use a colloquialism, that's just as much of a problem. And I hear, because I speak often with early career academics, many supervisors who need support for well-being.
To ensure that there can be social connections with people. It could be as simple as saying once a month, getting everybody you supervise together and saying, let's have tea together. And that people meet each other. And then there could be larger scale institutional actions to get people together, where the purpose is not to just work and write, but also just to sit and to be there as a person connecting with another person. Anybody else who'd like to, any other of the tables? I am mindful of time, Sue and Stephanie. Okay, let's do 2 more tables.
Thank you. My name is Saibet Mterek. I'm from Rhodes University. I speak on behalf of the group. without wasting time in repeating everything that was said by other groups, let me just point out two or more things that we have discussed. One is the issues that can be done to accommodate students who are in need. Collectively, as a Center for Postgraduate Studies, we are collecting sanitary towels and soap that postgraduate students can come and pick at any time without asking anyone, or they can pop in if they want. And this has been working very well. Then the other thing is that we need to create cultures of collaboration as supervisors and students as well. And supervisors need to be aware of the hierarchies that prevent interaction between them and the students. And also the mentality that supervisors might usually want to put across as supermen of research, and as people whose papers are never rejected by journals. They need to share their difficulties in the publication industry. We were saying here at this group that if you are a professor, a distinguished professor, an associate professor, who doesn't have one or two of his papers rejected per year, it means you're playing in shallow waters. And therefore, you need to share such experience of your papers being rejected with your own students. That would accommodate postgraduate students anyway. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I see a hand here, and I think this is a very good point. Relationships are built on trust, and if one does not show vulnerability in a relationship, it's very difficult to build trust. So that kind of sharing of vulnerability in order to say this is a safe space and then build self-efficacy beliefs is a wonderful mechanism. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm Pierre from Wits University, and I'm going to add just one point, and it was the focus of our discussion, and that was, is it possible to create community virtually? So comments like post-COVID, students are not keen to come to contact sessions, they prefer online sessions. I think that's really something to bring to the table. So how do you create community, given that if you want to take it to scale, at Wits we have 14,000 plus postgraduates. How do you do it unless you do it virtually? Thank you.
Or probably in this room have so many examples of where a virtual community can maintain over time. I think the trick is that how do we, in that virtual community, still have the neurochemistry happen? So if it's a virtual community, do we have enough space here for oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and endorphin? So, and I think there are magic ways in which to do it. I've certainly been part of communities where we all drank a glass of wine while we spoke over space, or talked about recipes and not only work. There's a way in which we bring humanity into an online space that goes beyond just a task-oriented approach. The hand's somewhere.
Thank you so much. I'm from Nelson Mandela University, and my name is Colloquium. I wouldn't be doing it justice if I don't mention that our university is currently hosting, well, our Department of Research and Development is hosting the Postgraduate Orientation Program, which basically is designed to equip new postgraduate students with tools, insights, and connections they need to thrive in the academic space. So they feature keynote speakers that are expertise in the research field. And one of the topics that they're discussing today is strategies for building a positive relationship with your supervisors, amongst many. So that's why the DVC-RI and my director is not here today. So I think we are thriving in that because it's an annual program that we run for our postgraduate students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see one more hand. Let's push the time preference economy.
You'll be very happy to know that next week there's an international conference in Stellenbosch around postgraduate supervision, and the theme of this year is supervision as relationality, or as relational. So I think there is a lot of attention, but the main thing I would want to say is how do we create spaces, not just virtually, but that are enabling for distance and mature students, where a lot of the things that are positive can be pivots that are also negative. Social spaces can be enabling, but they can also be disabling. Family can be enabling in that they create a safe space for you to belong, but they can be disabling in that they put pressure on you.
Expectations.
So how do we balance those things? The same would be true in academic spaces. And I'm not always sure that all the wonderful things that we do hit the spot in terms of being enabling. Sometimes they can even be disabling with the best of intentions in the world.
That's a lovely question. I think probably it would merit to systematically study that to see which of those actually lead to the unintended positive outcomes we want given the conditions of disruption, and see why those worked. So what were the conditions that made them work? Stephanie, thank you so much for all your contributions, and hoping that we will not, like in the UK, have a minister of loneliness, but that we will be a country of connection and institutions of connection where we know each other, appreciate each other, and all contribute to positive outcomes for postgrad students.